Cool. So I'm sharing my slides. Welcome to Cardano Builders yet again. So this is our third check-in now, right? 002. As you noticed, we changed the cadence to weekly meetups. So thank you for being here. I assume next week we'll be back to a more normal size and probably grow from there a little bit. Just to reiterate, all of you here know that already. We are a group of current and future builders where we're building on Cardano, and ultimately by building on Cardano, we're also building Cardano itself, right? So we're checking in on each other in this group. We inform each other's on each other's wins, celebrate each other, right? Keep each other accountable by being accountability buddies, and also provide support and actionable advice. And we do that with the check-in, and meaning in small groups. Just the three of us today is a good example. Right, we share concisely what it is we are building, and also a few prompts. Right, so we have our 30-second pitch, what we have accomplished recently, what's next, and also what you need help with. Right, so we generally focus on a project, and depending on the size of a project, 7 to 10 minutes on one project, and then we move to the next one. Also, as a reminder, per default, the information provided is confidential, so please treat it as such. If you think that sharing any information would be beneficial to other people, then please ask for permission. So again, this is going to be our update, right? So while this is primarily a private space, there is the opportunity to provide a public update, which will be recorded, including the Q&A session. And so this week, I'll provide my update for mediators.ai again. But starting next week, right, we'll have somebody else in the spotlight. I asked James from Gimbal Labs, since he's one who often also provides space for others, that I personally feel sometimes he does not have the right format to share as well, right? So kind of giving back here. I hand-selected him. He's out this week, but he'll be sharing some of the things that him and his group at Gimbal Labs are building. So looking forward to that, and following every other week. If somebody feels compelled to present, they can do that. And that can also be recorded, right? So one recording per session, and we share that publicly on the YouTube. If for whatever reason you say, hey, I'm okay with recording that, to share it on YouTube, for example, but you find even after everything is recorded, you find, what, there's one thing that I think might be problematic if that gets out publicly. Information like that can easily come out, but in these Q&A sessions, then of course let me know before I upload it to YouTube, so I can cut that out. So without further ado, though, so here's my pitch in 30 seconds and less. Slightly changed, actually. So maybe you can spot the change. So here we go. In the US, mediations have an average turnaround time of half a year. Many courts are backed up for years. Mediators.ai, the first dispute resolution platform on Cardano, helps settling disputes within 1 week. In the previous check-in, I stated that I wanted to onboard 5 new mediators and start cases. We onboarded 9 mediators, but have no cases yet. But granted, this was originally a 2-week goal, not just one, so I still have 1 more week for that. More generally, of course, we are looking to turn eyeballs into mediations. So for that, we'll primarily work on improving the messaging on the website this week. The ask is still the same, right? Help spread the word. So we need help with generally raising awareness and getting disputing parties to use the platform. So that's that, and we can start with the Q&A right away. But before we actually do that, right, just a reminder, you're going to be next, and if you want to provide a public update, so certainly RSVP to our meetup page, and then also send me an email or a Discord message. That would be much appreciated.
Hey guys, good afternoon.
Hey.
So yeah, for me, my feedback is like it's great, it's improving, and from my personal standpoint, initially I was a bit confused what mediation is to start with, how it relates to the general litigation processes. So in previous presentations, I think I saw your presentation about twice before, and yeah, when you start comparing it and distinguishing it with litigation, it helps to paint the picture of what it is. And then also how it helps the mediators or not, if it's a service for mediators or that type of use cases. I think so. And overall, I'm curious to use it or to take it for a stroll or something as a developer. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's very valuable feedback. Yeah, and you're right. Last week I mentioned also that half of our team at Lux certainly did not know about mediations, or at least not to a even very basic level. So yeah, what is mediation? And I think the comparison with litigation, we have to do that, and that is also something that I've ideated on a working session yesterday, and will definitely come into play in the messaging, right? If it's clear, I think, and compare that with the courts saying, you know what, yes, you can go to court, but here's one problem with court, right? One problem is the courts are just backed up, right? But then also more interestingly, what is actually different to court, right? Because court is this adversarial process, right, where even the winner often does not get what they want. But in mediation, the goal is actually for the parties to arrive at an amicable solution with the help of a mediator who does not make any decisions. They're just there to help the parties see their situation and help address the actual issues of the parties. So thank you for that. As a developer, there's actually one interesting question that I would have, right? Because when we had our Gimbal Labs playground session 2 weeks ago, in Nin from Snap earlier asked also, okay, how can I integrate, right? Is it going to be an API? Is it going to be an SDK? Or what is the path going forward, right? So what do you think? If, Lucas, you're working with other people in the group and you just would like to, can you see yourself having a dispute with other team members and then wanting to talk with the help of a third party to each other to resolve the dispute, and how would that work? Would you be?
I'm not sure. I think this is, for me, I keep drawing a parallel with what it is to have, like, for example, a faculty teacher, university teacher, or a trainer. So the training industry, which is like informal, and the certified academic, and I'm still trying to picture exactly how mediation is binding, or how it works as apart from mediators.ai, what it is in terms of how binding it is, how formal or informal it is. So for example, if I had a divorce or something like that, I think you mentioned that type of thing, we may go to a mediator because it's sort of a way to come to a mutual agreement. But for, like we were just saying, for a Gimbal Labs situation, I think the way I would put it is for something that wouldn't escalate to a litigation. Is it also something that we can put through mediation?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. So another good point. So very valuable. In that, yeah. So we have, for example, on one end of the spectrum, we have something like divorce, right? Where in California, for example, there can be a legally binding mediation agreement that essentially has everything outlined, right? When it comes to matters of child custody or visitation rights, etc., right? On the other end of the spectrum, you have mediations that really set more sentiments. Now, and this is fine as well, right? Because sometimes you don't. It depends on the parties, it depends on mediators, what the appropriate outcome will be. In my experience, often it helps to have at least a mediation agreement. Whether that's legally binding or not is a different question. But it helps people, maybe not everyone, but what I've seen, it helps people to have a document at the end that clearly states, okay, this is what we agreed on, and party A will do X, party Y will do Y, or also sometimes it can be stated in the negative, right? Like party A will not call party B Z anymore, right? Just spitting out examples. So something that, it's really not a matter of litigation, that those things can and often also should be mediated. Absolutely. Because often these simple things can escalate. And just like my cat right now is trying to chew off my leg, right? Um, Absolutely. So I think that that there's a use case, and maybe we should just need to highlight or showcase some examples so that um, multiple teams see it's like, oh yeah, we can actually use mediation to improve the communication within our team as well, to tackle issues that may arise early on, and overall see this more as a positive instrument to improve the quality of cooperation within the team.
Okay, but it has sort of a voluntary character to it, right?
Yes.
Okay. So can I ask you a couple of questions about Mediators AI as a platform?
Sure. Yeah.
Just
Let's try
very
to do
like
that for 2 minutes. I don't want to take
quick
much time.
fire. So what I'm trying to understand is like, is it more like a directory of mediators, or is it like within the mediate when it's like when you found supply and demand, let's say, it actually documents the whole process of one mediation from top to bottom? Is it both?
Great questions. Yeah. So it is not I guess if I had to describe it in one word, it's a brokerage. Because I described it early on as a marketplace, which is really not, because we're ultimately connecting the pieces. So we started with the supply side, right? So we used our connections to universities and other ADR credentialing issuing organizations to attract a good group of very well trained and experienced mediators, and sometimes also well trained and really good mediators that do not have industry exposure that much, because I mean that's a whole another story. But essentially, we're building the supply side up, and now what we're doing is we facilitate the process. So there's a separate onboarding process for mediators, which is very manual as of right now. And now we take in parties. They tell us essentially, okay, this is what the case is about, like broadly, right? Whether that be family matters or technology matters or employment, business, whatever it is, right? So we have like broad categories. Uh, there's an intake process they parties give us, or party A gives us, okay, this is the maximum budget. Based on that, there are a couple of availabilities in terms of times available over the next 3 weeks. They can make a pre-selection there, just of time slots where they're available. Then there's a handoff process to party B, where party B can further limit the maximum budget of what they can pay. Based on that, you potentially have less availability. And ultimately, party B makes a selection. So you have an intersect of parties A, party B's preferences, or actually criteria. And then we select a mediator based on those parameters, right? And that happens automatically because we know what cases mediators are good for. Like, first of all, what types of cases they want to mediate, at what budget, their availability, right? So that's the intersect. But then, of course, there's also a quality control component in there. So we can always essentially connect the parties to the most suitable mediator for their mediation. So that's the process. We use blockchain, we use Cardano, so we have smart contracts there, so that by the time a mediation request comes in to a mediator, we know that mediation is funded. So that case can go to mediation, and with a happy path after 4 hours, the mediation is solved, and the mediator gets the funds.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds great.
Cool.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll try to be more concise in my answers. I'm sure there's other questions, but my time is up. So we are going to move to the next person. And let me stop the recording.